Arik Winters had never liked surprises. After 23 years in the Galactic Exploration Corps, he thought he had seen most things that space could throw at a human. He had flown through asteroid storms, negotiated ceasefires with territorial alien clans, and even survived a black hole simulation gone wrong. Yet nothing had prepared him for the message that blinked onto his console that morning. The transmission was simple. Almost too simple for the vast technological network of the Valari. Just one night. No sender signature. No explanation. No date. Just those 4 words repeated 3 times, as if the Valari expected him to understand something beyond language itself. Arik leaned back in his chair, rubbing the bridge of his nose. The Valari were notoriously mysterious. Their civilization had existed for millennia longer than humanity. And even now, humans only understood a fraction of their culture. Entire fleets of researchers had failed to decode even simple Valari messages before, and here was one addressed directly to him. A soft chime indicated an incoming video feed. The shimmering blue light coalesced into a humanoid figure, though Arik could tell immediately it was not human. Its skin seemed like liquid crystal, constantly shifting in subtle patterns. Eyes, if they could be called that, glowed faintly with a golden hue. Lieutenant Arik Winters, a smooth, resonant voice said, "We have observed your species' curiosity. It is charming. You are invited to our station just one night. You will see both aspects of our civilization. You will understand if you can." The word both made Arik sit forward. "Both aspects?" he asked aloud. The AI assistant in his quarters beeped softly, as if agreeing with him. Arik felt a tingle of excitement and caution all at once. "Both of you, together?" he said, testing the boundaries of human audacity. It was a question he wasn't sure the Valari would understand, but he couldn't help it. It was in human nature to confront unknowns head-on. The crystal figure seemed to shimmer in amusement. "Yes, together. One night. Are you prepared?" Arik swallowed. "I will be there." That was how it began. By the next light cycle, Arik was aboard the intrepid Voyager, a sleek exploration vessel built for speed and endurance. Its hull reflected the colors of distant nebulae as it jumped through hyperspace. He reviewed the mission plan repeatedly. The Valari had provided coordinates, but nothing else. No details about the station, its defenses, or the nature of what he might face. His team had insisted he'd take assistance as protocol demanded. But Arik had insisted on going alone. First contact missions required trust in oneself above all else, he argued. If humans were to show their strength in the galaxy, they needed representatives who could act with boldness and ingenuity. The journey through hyperspace gave him time to think. Humans had made tremendous leaps in space travel in just a few centuries. They had learned to survive in hostile environments, create machines that could think faster than any human, and adapt to challenges no one had imagined. Yet the Valari were a different matter entirely. He remembered stories from older pilots' legends of humans venturing into Valari space and being overwhelmed not by weapons, but by challenges that tested the mind and spirit. Entire crews had returned shaken, some never returning at all. And still, here he was, about to face the unknown. The hyperspace jump ended with a sudden jerk. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past in long lines, then snapped back into focus as the intrepid Voyager exited into normal space. Floating ahead was a structure unlike anything human engineering had ever conceived. It was a station, but not in any traditional sense. It rotated slowly, its shape a complex web of floating rings, bridges, and crystalline spires. Energy ran along its surfaces like liquid fire, but there were no visible engines. Its sheer size was intimidating, larger than any human orbital habitat, and it seemed alive, shifting imperceptibly as if breathing. Arik's heart pounded with anticipation. He took a deep breath and activated the docking protocol. The station's outer surface glimmered, scanning him with invisible sensors. Then, without warning, a section of the outer ring opened like a giant flower, revealing a docking bay. The ship slid inside effortlessly. Inside the station, the air shimmered with soft blue light. Gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth's, but manageable. Arik stepped onto the platform, and for the first time, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This was not just a diplomatic mission. It was a chance to demonstrate humanity's worth on a galactic stage. Two figures awaited him. They were the Valari ambassadors, each representing one facet of their civilization. One was tall and elongated, with limbs like flowing ribbons of energy. This was the branch focused on intellect and knowledge, the researchers, philosophers, and thinkers. The other was more solid, muscular in appearance, but with edges that shimmered and flexed, representing the Valari's mastery over physicality. Art and craft. Arik took a careful step forward. Both of you. Together? He repeated, his voice calm, but carrying a subtle thread of challenge. The first Valari ambassador's crystalline form shimmered. You wish to engage fully. That is unusual. Most species fear dual understanding. You do not. You are curious, yes, but also brave. The second ambassador extended what could be called a hand, though it was more a luminous appendage of energy. Curiosity is the first sign of potential. Let us see if humanity can match our tests. One night will decide much. Arik nodded, though inside he felt a spark of excitement. This was what humans were good at, adapting to challenges that seemed impossible, finding solutions when none appeared to exist, and daring to face fears head-on. The night began with a simple exercise. The Valari created a room of shifting geometry. Platforms rose and fell, walls extended and retracted, and light patterns danced across every surface. Arik's task was to navigate to the far side without touching any forbidden zones, a puzzle that required both careful observation and improvisation. At first, he stumbled. The room seemed to defy logic. But humans were adaptable. He studied the patterns, learned the timing, and used his own ingenuity to leap across gaps, spin on walls, and slide through narrowing corridors. Every move he made was observed by the Valari, their glowing forms tracking him silently. By the end of the first exercise, he was panting but exhilarated. The Valari nodded approvingly. You see both aspects, the first said. You adapt your mind, the second ambassador added, and your body responds in ways we did not predict. Interesting. Arik allowed himself a small smile. He knew the night had only begun, but humanity's resilience had already shown. Even against beings who had evolved for millennia, humans could shine. As he settled into the first sleeping chamber, designed specifically for human physiology, he thought about the journey ahead. Whatever the Valari had in store for him, he knew one thing for certain. Humans would not be passive observers in this galaxy. They would rise to meet every challenge, using courage, creativity, and determination as their tools. The stars outside shimmered like scattered diamonds against the black velvet of space. One night, the Valari had promised, but for Arik, that night would stretch far beyond expectations. It would test the limits of human endurance, intellect, and spirit, and he was ready. The first rays of the Valari station's artificial dawn filtered through translucent panels, casting soft blue shadows across the observation deck. Arik Winters stretched, feeling muscles he hadn't realized were tense after the previous night's exercises. His mind buzzed with anticipation. The first night had been an introduction, a test of human adaptability. He had passed in ways even he hadn't expected. Now, the real encounter began. He walked cautiously along the winding corridors, the Valari station alive with movement. It wasn't crowded, but lights and holographic patterns flowed along the walls like water, hinting at a life of its own. Arik had always known alien civilizations could be advanced, but the station's design was beyond imagination. Its geometry shifted subtly underfoot, adjusting to his presence. "Welcome, Lieutenant Winters," said a familiar voice. The crystalline ambassador appeared, floating in the center of a chamber. Its surface shimmered with countless colors, reflecting the station's living light. Beside it, the second ambassador, solid and flowing with energy, tilted its form in greeting. "You made it through the first night," the first said, its voice resonant and calm. "Few species can adapt as quickly," Arik inclined his head. "I had good teachers," he said, thinking of humanity's long history of survival against impossible odds. And I have to admit, I'm curious what comes next. The second ambassador's form rippled in what Eric interpreted as amusement. Curiosity is essential, it said. Your species does not fear complexity, nor do you shrink from challenges. That is why you were chosen, Rick nodded. The Valeri rarely chose individuals for first contact. Most of the time, they observed from a distance, preferring to test species indirectly. To invite a human alone was unusual. To invite him to witness both aspects of their civilization was unprecedented. He felt a mix of pride and pressure. The chamber shifted, walls folding back to reveal a vast open space. At its center floated a sphere of pure light, rotating slowly. Holographic projections extended from it like streams of energy, depicting abstract shapes and patterns. Arik stepped closer, awed. This, the crystalline ambassador said, is our knowledge core. It represents our intellectual aspect. It contains every discovery we have ever made, every equation, experiment, and insight. It is the mind of our civilization. Arik studied it carefully. He could feel the depth of information, the magnitude of understanding packed into the core. Humans had vast libraries, computers and AI, but nothing approached this level of integration. He realized that the Valeri had mastered the art of storing thought itself. And the other? He asked, glancing at the flowing muscular Valeri beside him. That is the next chamber, it replied. It represents our physical mastery, our art, construction, and adaptability. We test not only intelligence, but coordination, creativity, and strength. You will experience both together. Eric's curiosity flared. Humans had always excelled in combining intellect and adaptability in unpredictable situations. He felt a surge of confidence. Whatever challenge lay ahead, he would approach it the human way, with boldness and ingenuity. The first chamber began to transform, shifting into a labyrinth of floating platforms, holographic puzzles, and energy fields. Arik stepped forward, scanning carefully. Each platform carried a sequence of symbols, some familiar, some completely alien. The task was clear. Navigate the maze without triggering any defensive responses. He moved cautiously, testing one step at a time. The Valeri watched silently, their presence commanding, but not oppressive. Humans were good at improvisation, and that advantage began to show immediately. Arik noticed patterns that seemed random at first. Then, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place, he understood the rhythm of the platforms and the energy flows. Leap by leap, he advanced, solving each puzzle with a mix of intuition and deduction. A platform would tilt unexpectedly. He adapted. A wall would shift into the path. He calculated the timing to move around it. Every move was a silent demonstration of human ingenuity. When he reached the chamber's center, the sphere of light shifted, projecting a holographic message. Symbols danced in the air, forming sequences that no human language could capture. Yet Arik instinctively understood the meaning. You see the patterns, the crystalline ambassador said, not through comprehension alone, but through observation and adaptation. That is how you differ from other species. You do not rely solely on memory or instruction. You learn from experience. Arik nodded, impressed. We survive that way, he said simply. It's how humans have made it this far in the galaxy. The second ambassador extended a flowing limb toward him, and the room changed instantly. The knowledge core vanished, replaced by a vast arena-like space filled with moving platforms, shifting walls, and floating obstacles. This was the Valeris test of physical mastery. Eric's instincts kicked in immediately. Humans had evolved to handle uncertainty. He sprinted across floating platforms, balanced on narrow energy beams, and dodged shifting barriers. The Valeri had designed the course to push endurance, speed, and coordination to the limit. But humans were resourceful. He improvised movements, using momentum and leverage in ways the Valeri hadn't anticipated. Midway through, an unexpected challenge appeared, a floating puzzle that required simultaneous intellectual and physical coordination. Symbols had to be aligned while maintaining balance on moving beams. Eric paused for only a moment, then used a combination of logic and agility to solve the puzzle. The Valari observed silently, then shimmered in approval. "You combine both aspects naturally," the crystalline ambassador said. "Few species can merge intellect with physical adaptability. You demonstrate balance. You demonstrate potential." Arik smiled faintly. Humans often relied on collaboration and improvisation to survive challenges that seemed impossible. He felt the subtle pride of his species, the quiet thrill of showing that humans could rise to meet even the most advanced civilizations. The night continued with a series of exercises, each more complex than the last. They were designed not to intimidate, but to reveal character. The Valari watched as Arik demonstrated creativity, courage, and endurance. Each obstacle tested a different part of human ability: memory, problem-solving, agility, observation, and intuition. And each time, he adapted. By the end of the sequence, Arik was exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced the full spectrum of the Valaris duality and had emerged successful. The Valari ambassadors approached him, their forms glowing with subtle patterns of recognition. "You see the full potential of what you can achieve," the crystalline ambassador said. "And we see the potential in your species." The other nodded, its form flowing like liquid energy. Curiosity, courage, and adaptability, these are traits we value above all. Humans have them in abundance. That is why you were chosen, Lieutenant Winters. That is why tonight matters. Arik took a deep breath, looking out at the stars beyond the station. Humans were still young in the galaxy, but they were survivors. They were explorers. And in this moment, he understood something important. The Valari were not testing him simply to challenge. They were testing whether humanity was ready to join the wider community of advanced civilizations, and humans were more than ready. He allowed himself a small smile. One night had already revealed more than he could have imagined. But the Valari had promised more: an opportunity to witness both aspects of their civilization fully. One night, and it would define not just him, but the place of humans in the galaxy. Arik settled into the observation deck, exhausted but awake with anticipation. The stars outside twinkled like countless eyes watching silently. One night, the Valari had said, one night to prove humanity's worth. And he knew that by the end of it, humans would leave an impression that would be remembered for centuries to come. The station hummed softly, live with the flow of energy and life. Arik closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a connection to something far larger than himself. The night had only begun. The chamber doors closed behind Arik Winters with a soft hum, sealing him in a space that was unlike anything he had experienced before. The Valari station had already tested his intellect and his physical abilities, but now, the true challenge, began: the trial by fire, as the crystalline ambassador had called it. Arik stepped forward cautiously. The room stretched into a vast hall, its floor a lattice of glowing panels. Some floated above the ground, shifting slowly like islands on a luminous sea. The walls were covered in patterns of moving light, symbols that seemed to change their meaning as he looked at them. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, giving the impression that the space went on forever. You will face a series of tests designed to measure your adaptability, creativity, and resilience. The first ambassador's voice echoed around the hall. These trials are not simply physical or intellectual. They require the combination of both. You must think and act simultaneously. Arik inhaled deeply. Humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, in the galaxy. Many species had evolved abilities far beyond theirs. But humans had a gift the Valari seemed to recognize: the ability to adapt, to improvise, to solve impossible problems in real time. He would rely on that gift now more than ever. The first challenge appeared as a floating cube of light suspended in midair. When Arik approached, the cube split into dozens of smaller shapes that floated around him in rapid motion. Each piece emitted a tone when touched, and the patterns seemed to form a sequence. Arik realized quickly that he had to recreate the correct order while moving between platforms that were constantly shifting beneath him. He leaped from one platform to another, balancing carefully, as he reached out to touch the floating shapes. His mind raced to remember the patterns, his body moving with precision to avoid the energy barriers that appeared at random. A shape would suddenly move or vanish, forcing him to adjust instantly. He had to anticipate the next sequence while staying aware of his own footing. It was chaos. Yet Eric felt a strange rhythm emerge. He was learning the patterns, sensing the logic behind the Valari's design. By the time he completed the sequence, sweat dripped from his brow. He had solved the puzzle in a way even he hadn't expected, using both logic and instinct, moving as much with his intuition as with reason. The Valari observed silently, their glowing forms shifting slightly, a gesture that seemed almost approving. "You combine intellect and adaptability naturally," the crystalline ambassador said. "This is what sets your species apart." Arik nodded, though his chest heaved with exhaustion. He barely had time to rest. The chamber shifted again. The walls rippled, the floor disappeared, and he found himself suspended in a space where gravity fluctuated unpredictably. Platforms rotated, spun, and moved in 3 dimensions. This next challenge will test your ability to maintain control under stress. The second ambassador's voice resonated. Its form flowed like liquid energy, extending toward the floating platforms. "You must navigate this hall while coordinating movement and thought simultaneously. Failure will not end in harm, but it will delay your understanding of us." Eric's mind sharpened. Humans were survivors because they had learned to remain calm under pressure. He focused, noticing the subtle cues in the platform's movement, the flicker of symbols in the walls and the energy of the Valari forms that guided his path. He moved swiftly, leaping, sliding, and spinning through the space, thinking several steps ahead. Midway through, a new complication arose. A panel lit up in bright orange, emitting a low hum. If he touched it, the sequence would reset. At the same time, a symbol flashed on a wall, indicating that he had to adjust his movement pattern to match it. Arik paused only for a heartbeat, then calculated the distance and timing, using momentum to reach the next platform while keeping his body perfectly aligned. It worked. The panel dimmed, and the symbol glowed steadily, signaling success. Arik allowed himself a faint smile. Humans were unpredictable in ways the Valari appreciated. They could combine flexibility with rapid decision-making, creativity with logic, a combination few species possessed. As the trial continued, obstacles became more complex. Some required him to manipulate the environment. Floating panels had to be rotated, barriers shifted into the correct alignment, and symbols solved in tandem with movement. Others tested endurance, forcing him to maintain balance and speed while solving rapidly changing sequences of puzzles. At one point, Eric faced a challenge that required him to act simultaneously with both Valari aspects. A holographic projection, split into 2 streams. One intellectual, a sequence of complex symbols. The other physical, a shifting array of moving platforms. He had to solve both at once, touching the correct symbols while moving across precarious surfaces. For a moment, he felt overwhelmed. No human had attempted this before. But Eric's training and instincts kicked in. He divided his attention, anticipating the symbol's sequence while adjusting to the platform's motion. Step by step, touch by touch, he progressed. Each success gave him confidence. His mind and body were operating together, a harmony of human adaptability in real time. By the end of the session, Arik collapsed onto a stable platform, breathing heavily. He felt the exhilaration of victory, but he also recognized the deeper lesson. The Valari's trials were not designed to break him. They were designed to reveal the qualities of humanity. "You have endured well," the crystalline ambassador said. "You demonstrate ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Few species could navigate these trials without error. You have done so consistently." The second ambassador flowed closer, its form rippling like a river of light. And yet there is one final test. It is not merely a challenge of thought or body, but of perception and intuition. You must see the connections between what you have experienced, between intellect and physical mastery. Only then will you understand both aspects of our civilization fully. Arik straightened, feeling a spark of excitement. Humans were explorers by nature, driven to understand and connect disparate ideas. This was what set them apart. If the Valari expected perception and intuition, then humanity could deliver. The final challenge appeared as a massive holographic sphere suspended above the center of the hall. Patterns of light swirled across its surface, projecting streams of data that Arik could not immediately comprehend. Yet he sensed a rhythm, a logic behind the chaos. He reached out, touching one of the streams. Instantly, the sphere responded, shifting its patterns based on his actions. He realized that the sphere was interactive, required not only manipulation, but understanding. The knowledge he had gained in the previous challenges informed his decisions. He anticipated the movements, adjusting both hands and feet as platforms shifted beneath him. Time seemed to blur. Arik moved, calculated, and improvised simultaneously, fully immersed in the trial. His body was exhausted, his mind stretched to its limits, yet he felt alive in a way he had never experienced. This was human potential on display. Ingenuity under pressure, adaptability under uncertainty, creativity in real time. When the sphere finally stabilized, the hall brightened and the platform stopped moving. Arik breathed deeply, realizing he had completed the trial. The Valari forms shimmered in approval, their presence calm and radiant. "You have shown what humans can achieve," the crystalline ambassador said. "You have adapted, improvised, and connected knowledge and action. That is rare among species we have observed. That is why you were chosen," second ambassador added. "Your success is not simply personal, Lieutenant Winters. It represents the potential of your species. Humanity has traits we value greatly: creativity, courage, resilience, and the ability to learn quickly under pressure. These are the qualities that will allow you to stand alongside advanced civilizations in the galaxy." Arik's chest swelled with pride. The trials had been intense, more challenging than anything he had imagined. Yet he had succeeded not because of superior strength or technology, but because of human qualities that no alien could replicate: curiosity, adaptability, and the will to face the unknown head-on. As he stepped onto the observation platform, looking out at the stars beyond the station, he felt a profound connection to the universe. The Valari had not only tested him, they had acknowledged humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans were young, yes, but full of potential. And in this moment, Arik understood that the future was not just about survival. It was about proving the value of human ingenuity to civilizations far older and wiser than his own. The night was far from over. The Valari had more to reveal, more to teach, and more to test. But Arik felt ready. He'd faced the trial by fire and emerged stronger, more confident, and fully aware of what humans could offer to the universe. For the first time, he understood something crucial. Humans were not merely observers in the galaxy. They were participants, capable of rising to any challenge, adapting in ways that even millennial civilizations might not anticipate, and that realization, more than any victory, filled him with hope. Arik Winters stood in the middle of the Valari chamber, still catching his breath from the intense trial by fire. The trials had tested every aspect of him: mind, body, and instinct. Yet, as exhausting as they were, he felt an unexpected exhilaration. He had adapted, solved, survived, and, more importantly, had proven that human ingenuity could stand. Alongside a species that had evolved for millennia, the crystalline ambassador shimmered closer, its form reflecting soft patterns of light across the walls. "You have done well," it said, its resonant voice echoing through the hall. "Few beings can navigate our trials and emerge intact. Your species shows creativity, courage, and adaptability." Arik nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thank you. But I feel like I've only just scratched the surface. There's more to your civilization than tests and puzzles, isn't there?" The flowing, muscular Valari moved beside him, radiating subtle energy. "Indeed, knowledge and strength are only part of who we are. We value collaboration, empathy, and the ability to perceive connections between things that appear unrelated. These qualities are often overlooked by other species. You, however, may understand them." Eric tilted his head, curious. Humans had always relied on intuition as much as reason, forging solutions through unexpected connections. "I'd like to try," he said. "Show me what you mean." The Valari guided him to a large chamber unlike any he had seen. It was open, circular, and suspended in zero gravity. Streams of energy flowed across the space, forming intricate shapes, symbols, and floating platforms. The entire area seemed alive, responding to movement, thought, and even emotion. "This is the Hall of Connection," the crystalline ambassador explained. "Here, you will witness how we integrate intellect, creativity, and perception. It is not a test in the traditional sense. It is an invitation to understand us fully." Arik took a cautious step forward. As he did, one of the floating streams of light shifted, forming a path that seemed to respond to his presence. He realized quickly that the hall was interactive. Movement, attention, and intent shaped the environment. He began to explore, reaching out to touch the streams. Light responded to him, creating patterns that mirrored his thoughts and actions. He jumped onto a floating platform, and as he balanced, he noticed a complex web of connections forming in the air above a visual representation of knowledge and action intertwined. "This is incredible," Arik whispered. Humans had always learned through experimentation, observation, and adaptation. Yet nothing in human history had prepared him for a space that reacted so fluidly to thought and movement. The Valari observed silently, their forms shifting as if encouraging him. Then the crystalline ambassador spoke. "Notice how patterns form. Each action has consequences. Each thought influences the environment. This is how we operate as a civilization, intellect and creativity intertwined. Observation alone is not enough. Interaction is key." Arik paused, thinking deeply. "So you're saying it's not enough to simply understand something logically? You have to connect with it, feel it, and respond in real time." "Exactly," the flowing Valari replied. "Many species rely solely on logic or instinct. Few can integrate both. You can." Arik smiled. Humans were unique in their ability to combine emotion, creativity, and reasoning. They could improvise in situations that seemed impossible, adapt to sudden changes, and still maintain focus on a goal. That combination had allowed humanity to survive countless crises. From interstellar travel hazards to conflicts with unpredictable species, as he continued, the hall transformed again. Platforms shifted, streams of energy converged, and a series of floating objects appeared. Each object represented a challenge, not just intellectual or physical, but emotional and relational. He was asked to align the objects in a way that made sense intuitively, sensing connections that were not immediately visible. Eric stepped forward carefully, examining each object. Some glowed faintly, others pulsed with energy, and a few responded only when touched in a particular sequence. He experimented, learning from mistakes, adjusting his approach, and relying on instinct as much as reason. Slowly, he began to notice patterns. Some objects influenced others, forming chains of cause and effect. Others required simultaneous coordination, like balancing multiple ideas while moving through space. It was a complex dance, and Eric embraced it fully. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed meaningless in the Hall of Connection. Yet with each correct interaction, the environment seemed to respond with subtle approval. Light patterns brightened. Platforms stabilized, and streams of energy pulsed rhythmically. Eric realized that the Valari were not merely observing. They were inviting him to contribute, to collaborate in the creation of meaning within their civilization. "You see how action, thought, and perception interact," the crystalline ambassador said softly. "And now you will demonstrate your understanding fully." The flowing Valari extended a limb toward a series of platforms that had been floating independently. "We want you to align these elements, not by instruction, but by insight. Connect them as you feel they belong together." Eric studied the platforms carefully. Each seemed to represent a different concept: strength, knowledge, creativity, balance, and intuition. Humans had always excelled at linking disparate ideas, forming solutions from unlikely combinations. He moved quickly, testing connections, adjusting as needed, responding intuitively. To his surprise, the platforms began to resonate with one another. Colors harmonized, streams of energy aligned, and a network of light emerged, reflecting not just logic, but intention, imagination, and perception. The Valari watched silently, but Arik could sense their approval. "You have understood the essence of integration," the crystalline ambassador said. "You do not merely act. You perceive connections. You respond in ways that honor both intellect and instinct. This is rare among species." Arik allowed himself a quiet smile. Humanity had always been underestimated by older civilizations. They had neither the millennia of experience nor the perfection of evolution that species like the Valari possessed. Yet they had something unique: the ability to connect, improvise, and adapt in ways no one predicted. The flowing Valar moved closer, its form shifting fluidly. "Your success is not only personal, Lieutenant Winters. It represents what humans can contribute to the galaxy: curiosity, courage, creativity, and resilience. These are traits that cannot be taught, only lived. You embody them fully." Arik's chest swelled with quiet pride. Humans were often considered impulsive, fragile, or inexperienced. Yet here he was, standing in a space created by one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. And they recognized the value of human traits. "You honor us by participating," the crystalline ambassador said. "And we honor humanity by acknowledging your potential." For a moment, Arik felt a strange serenity. The trials had pushed him to his limits. But the Hall of Connection revealed a deeper truth. Humans were not only capable of survival, they were capable of insight, collaboration, and creativity that could impress even the oldest civilizations. He floated among the platforms, adjusting energy streams, feeling the patterns respond, and understanding the subtle interplay of intellect, perception, and action. It was a moment of pure human triumph, not through strength or dominance, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and understanding. The night outside the station seemed to fade, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. Arik realized that humans had always been explorers, not merely of space, but of ideas, connections, and possibilities. And in this chamber, with the Valari observing silently, he understood that humanity's journey was only beginning. "This has been extraordinary," Arik said quietly. "I didn't just witness your civilization. I participated in it. And I feel that humans can offer something unique to the galaxy because of it." The crystalline ambassador shimmered, its form reflecting patterns of light that seemed almost like a smile. "You understand? And by understanding, you have contributed." The flowing Valari rippled gently. "Humans have the courage to face unknowns, the curiosity to explore them, and the creativity to make meaning from them. That is rare. That is valuable. And that is why you are remembered tonight, Lieutenant Winters." Arik floated for a moment, looking out at the stars beyond the station. The universe was vast, full of civilizations far older and more advanced than his own. Yet humans were not powerless. They could adapt, create, and connect in ways no one expected. And in that realization, he felt hope not just for himself, but for all of humanity. The night had already tested him in ways he never imagined. But through these trials, through these challenges, he had discovered something essential. Humans had a place in the galaxy not because they were perfect, but because they were resourceful, courageous, and endlessly inventive. And that understanding, more than any victory or recognition, was the true reward. Arik Winters floated in the observation chamber of the Valari station, gazing at the stars beyond the translucent walls. The night had been long, intense, and unlike anything he had ever experienced. The trials, the Hall of Connection, and the interactions with the Valari ambassadors had tested his mind, body, and spirit. And yet, he felt stronger, sharper, more alive than ever. The crystalline ambassador shimmered softly, drifting toward him. "Lieutenant Winters," it said, its voice calm yet resonant. "The night has reached its conclusion. You have faced Challenges we designed to test intellect, adaptability, perception, and courage. You have exceeded our expectations. Arik nodded. Thank you. But I feel that I've learned more than I've proven. Your civilization is remarkable. It's more than just knowledge or strength. It's understanding and connection. The flowing Valari rippled beside him, their form moving with grace. Exactly. And it is this understanding that we wish to share with those who show the ability to perceive it. Humans are not merely observers, Lieutenant. A species has qualities we rarely see elsewhere: curiosity, resilience, creativity, and courage. These traits allow you to rise where others might fail. Arik's chest swelled with quiet pride. Humanity was often underestimated in the galaxy. Other civilizations saw humans as inexperienced, fragile, or unpredictable. Yet here among one of the oldest species in existence, humans were recognized not for their age, technology, or size, but for the very traits that define them. You have shown us that humans can adapt, improvise, and create solutions in ways even we did not predict, the crystalline ambassador continued. That is why you were invited. That is why you were allowed to witness both aspects of our civilization together. And that is why you are remembered tonight. Arik took a deep breath, letting the magnitude of the moment sink in. He thought of Earth, of the countless generations of humans who had struggled, survived, and built their way into the stars. He thought of explorers, scientists, engineers, and dreamers, those who had shaped humanity into a species capable of surviving the vast and dangerous universe. And now, he realized, humans were ready to be more than survivors. They were ready to be participants, contributors, and collaborators on a galactic scale. The chamber shifted subtly, opening onto a balcony overlooking the Valari station's central core. Below, enormous streams of energy flowed like rivers of light, connecting crystalline structures and floating platforms in a breathtaking display. Arik marveled at the beauty and precision, the harmony of intellect and artistry. The station was alive, not in the biological sense, but in a way that reflected its civilization's values: balance, connection, and understanding. This, the flowing Valari said, is the embodiment of what we have achieved together over millennia. And now, you have touched it, interacted with it, and contributed to it. Few species ever do. Arik's mind raced with excitement. So humans can be part of this? He asked. We can contribute, not just observe, as the crystalline ambassador said. Your success tonight demonstrates your potential. We see that humans can offer more than curiosity. You can collaborate, innovate, and inspire. You can shape outcomes in ways even species older than your own cannot predict. Arik's heart leaped. For centuries, humanity had looked up at the stars with wonder, dreaming of exploring, learning, and connecting with the wider universe. This moment, this recognition from the Vela felt like the culmination of all those dreams. The flowing Valari extended an appendage toward him, a gesture of invitation. We offer humanity the chance to join a council of advanced civilizations, not as subordinates or students, but as partners. Your species is young but full of promise. We wish to observe, guide, and collaborate with you. Are you prepared to accept this responsibility? Arik hesitated for only a moment. Then, with a deep breath, he nodded firmly. Yes, humanity is ready. We will rise to meet the challenge, and we will do it with courage, creativity, and determination. The Valari shimmered in unison, a silent acknowledgement of his commitment. It was rare for them to show emotion, but their forms conveyed respect, approval, and perhaps even admiration. The crystalline ambassador spoke again, its voice soft but weighty. Remember, Lieutenant Winters, your actions tonight are symbolic, not merely for yourself. They represent the potential of all humans. What you have achieved is not simply a personal victory. It is proof that your species can contribute meaningfully to the galaxy. Never forget that. Arik absorbed the words. He'd faced unimaginable challenges, solved impossible puzzles, and navigated situations that demanded intellect, intuition, and courage. But this, the acknowledgement that humanity had a place among the stars, was the true reward. The flowing Valari added, "Humanity is young. You will face trials beyond anything you know. But you also possess qualities that will allow you to thrive. Remember your ingenuity, your adaptability, and your willingness to act in ways no one expects. These are your greatest strengths." Arik looked out over the station once more. The stars sparkled in the blackness of space, distant worlds waiting to be discovered, civilizations waiting to be known. Humans were small, young, and inexperienced, but they were capable, daring, and clever. That combination made them dangerous, in a good way, to the galaxy's established order. As he prepared to depart, the Valari offered a parting gift, a small, crystalline device that contained a compact map of interstellar knowledge, allowing humans to navigate safely through previously unexplored regions of space. It was both practical and symbolic, a sign of trust and acknowledgement. "You may leave now," Lieutenant the Crystalline Ambassador said. "Return to your people with the knowledge that humanity has earned a place among the stars. Use it wisely." Arik bowed his head respectfully. "I will, I promise." He turned to the observation platform's exit, floating carefully through the zero-gravity corridor. The flowing Valari trailed alongside him, their forms shimmering in quiet reflection. He felt a sense of connection, not just with them, but with humanity itself. He realized that what made humans remarkable was not strength, speed, or technology, was their ability to face the unknown, adapt, and create meaning in chaos. The docking bay opened, and the intrepid voyager awaited him. The ship gleamed under the station's radiant energy streams. Ready for the journey back to Earth, Arik stepped aboard, feeling the familiar hum of the vessel beneath his feet. Yet he knew nothing would feel the same again. Humans had been recognized for who they truly weren't, as small, inexperienced beings, but as capable, creative, and courageous participants in a vast galaxy. The hyperspace jump began, stars stretching into long streaks of light as the ship accelerated. Arik leaned against the viewport, reflecting on the night. He had faced impossible trials, navigated complex challenges, and connected with one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. He had done more than survive. He had proven humanity's worth. For the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility. Not a burden, but an honor. Humans were young, yes, but they had qualities that older civilizations respected. They were adaptable, innovative, and courageous. And now, they had an opportunity to show the galaxy just what they could do. Arik thought of Earth, of the people who had dreamed, struggled, and persevered. He thought of explorers and scientists, engineers and inventors, those who had expanded humanity's reach into the stars. This recognition was for all of them. Humanity had earned its place, and he had been the one to witness it firsthand. The night faded behind him, replaced by the familiar streaks of hyperspace. Ahead lay new worlds, new challenges, and new opportunities. Humans were no longer just passengers in the galaxy. They were participants, contributors, and collaborators. They were ready to rise. Arik allowed himself a quiet smile. The stars outside the viewport stretched endlessly, but he no longer felt small. He felt connected, capable, and proud. One night had been enough to show the Valeriand, to show himself that humanity had qualities that could endure, inspire, and create. And as the intrepid voyager raced through the cosmos, Arik knew this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, but humans were ready. Humans were capable. Humans would rise, as they always had, to meet the unknown with courage, creativity, and determination. The night was over. A new dawn had begun, not just for Arik, but for all of humanity. And somewhere in the endless stretch of stars, civilizations waited, curious to see what these small, inventive, and daring beings could achieve next.